Once upon a time, a ship sailed through calm waters, carrying many passengers who were excited about their journey. However, as night fell, the weather suddenly changed. Dark clouds gathered, the wind howled, and the waves became violent. A fierce storm erupted, shaking the ship and tossing it around in the turbulent sea. The passengers and crew tried everything they could to stay safe, but the storm was too powerful. Eventually, the ship was torn apart and everyone aboard was thrown into the raging sea. In the chaos, all the passengers and crew were lost to the merciless waves. But by some miracle, one man survived. Clinging to a piece of the broken ship, he struggled to stay afloat in the stormy waters. The sea seemed endless, and hope seemed far away, but he held on. After what felt like an eternity, the storm subsided, and the man found himself drifting toward the shore of a small, desolate island. Exhausted and weak, he collapsed on the beach. When the man finally opened his eyes, he saw nothing but sand, rocks, and a dense jungle in the distance. There were no signs of life, no people, no houses, no boats, just the endless sea behind him and the wilderness ahead. As the reality of his situation sank in, he was filled with fear and uncertainty. How would he survive on this deserted island with no food, no shelter, and no idea if anyone would come to rescue him? In his desperation, the man knelt down on the beach and began to pray. "Oh God," he pleaded, "please help me. Please send me some help. I am stranded here with no hope. Please save me." He prayed with all his heart, believing that God would send someone to rescue him. Every morning, he would wake up, look toward the horizon, and hope to see a ship. But each day, the sea remained empty, and no help arrived. The man spent his nights sleeping on the beach under the cold, starry sky. Each morning he would pray again, hoping for a miracle. But as the days passed without any sign of rescue, his hope began to fade. He realized that he might be stranded on the island for a long time, maybe even forever. With a heavy heart, he accepted his fate. He was alone on the island, and he had to find a way to survive. Determined to make the best of his situation, the man began to gather materials from the island. He collected sticks, grass, and palm leaves to build himself a small hut for shelter. It wasn't much, but it provided some protection from the wind and rain. He also found pieces of the wrecked ship washed up on the shore and used them to store any useful items he found. For food, the man survived on coconuts from the palm trees and fish from the shallow waters around the island. He fashioned simple tools from rocks and sticks to help him catch fish and gather more coconuts. Day by day, he worked to improve his little shelter and make his life on the island a bit more bearable. Despite his efforts, life on the island was lonely and difficult. Every day felt the same, with no one to talk to and no sign of rescue. The man continued to pray, but as time went on, he started to feel abandoned by God. He wondered why his prayers were not being answered. Why had he been spared from the shipwreck only to be left alone on this desolate island? One day, after many weeks had passed, the man decided to venture farther into the island to search for more food. Before he left, he lit a fire near his hut, hoping it would help keep any wild animals away while he was gone. He spent the whole day searching the island, gathering fruits and exploring the jungle. When he returned to the beach later that day, he was shocked and horrified by what he saw. His hut, the small shelter he had worked so hard to build, was on fire. The flames roared and thick black smoke filled the air. Everything he had built, everything he had collected, was being consumed by the fire. The man was devastated. His only shelter was gone. All the items he had stored in the hut were lost to the flames. In that moment, he felt completely defeated. His heart filled with anger and frustration, and he cried out to God, "Oh God, I prayed to you for help, and you did not answer me. I built this hut to survive, and now you've taken it away from me. Why are you so cruel? Why did you let this happen?" The man stood there, watching the fire burn, feeling abandoned and hopeless. He couldn't understand why God would allow such a thing to happen. He had tried so hard to survive, and now everything was gone. That night, the man lay down on the cold beach, too sad to even pray. He stared up at the stars, feeling more alone than ever before, and eventually, he drifted off to sleep. The next morning, the man was awakened by a loud noise. It was unlike anything he had heard on the island before. When he opened his eyes and looked toward the sea, he could hardly believe what he saw. A ship had arrived on the shore. He jumped to his feet, overjoyed and filled with disbelief. Help had finally come. As he ran toward the ship, tears of joy filled his eyes. He couldn't believe his luck. The ship had come to rescue him after all this time. He quickly boarded the ship, where the crew welcomed him aboard and gave him food and water. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the man asked the captain, "How did you know I was stranded on this deserted island?" The captain replied, "We saw a fire signal coming from the island. We understood that someone must be there, so we came to help." The man was confused. "But I didn't send any fire signal," he said, trying to make sense of what the captain was saying. The captain simply smiled and replied, "We came here after seeing the fire. That's what led us to you." In that moment, the man realized what had happened. The fire that had destroyed his hut, the very thing that had caused him so much pain and frustration, was actually the signal that brought the ship to rescue him. He stood there in awe, understanding that what had seemed like a disaster was actually part of a greater plan. God had not abandoned him after all. The burning of his hut had been the answer to his prayers, even though he couldn't see it at the time. As the ship sailed away from the island, the man reflected on everything that had happened. He realized that sometimes things don't go the way we want them to. We make plans, we work hard, and we pray for things to turn out a certain way, but life doesn't always follow our expectations. In moments of hardship, it's easy to lose faith and feel abandoned. We question why things are happening to us and why our prayers seem to go unanswered. But in those moments, we must remember that we only see part of the picture. Our understanding is limited, but God's plan is much bigger and better than we can imagine. The man learned that what seemed like a disaster, the fire that destroyed his hut, was actually the key to his rescue. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, we must hold on to our faith and trust that everything happens for a reason. As the ship sailed farther away from the island, the man thanked God for saving him. He realized that sometimes what feels like the end is actually a new beginning. And though we may not always understand why things happen the way they do, we can trust that God's plan is always for our good.